A few weeks ago, I sat down with a founder who I'll call Sarah. She'd just come on board as a new partner running a B2B software company in her second year of growth. She pulled up a pitch deck and asked me a question I've heard probably 100 times in some form. Why isn't anyone buying or converting? She had a real product, real customers, 8 of them, a team of 4. She'd been pitching for 9 months. She had over 200 sales conversations, and 8 of them closed. And she couldn't figure out why. So I asked her to do one thing. I said, Sarah, forget the deck, forget the demo, forget the pricing page. In one sentence, what are you offering people? She thought about it for a second, and then what she said basically explained the whole thing. I want to talk to you about that sentence today, because once you understand why it failed, what was actually missing from it, you understand that the single most important thing about selling anything to anyone, and almost nobody talks about it the right way. This is a video about offers, not products, not pitches, not copywriting, offers, and how the difference between an offer that works and an offer that doesn't comes down to about 5 things, none of which most people sell on. Let me show you what I mean. Here is what Sarah said. We help mid-market companies streamline their workflows with a beautifully designed, easy-to-use platform built by a team that really understands the space. Now ask yourself, if someone said that to you in a meeting, what would you do? Let's be honest. You'd nod, you'd smile, you might ask one polite follow-up question, and then you'd move on with your life. Because nothing in that sentence requires you to do anything. There's no numbers, there's no outcome, there's no consequence to ignoring it. There's no reason today is different from any other day. It's a sentence that describes a company. It's not an offer. And here's the thing that took me a while to figure out, and that I think most people in business never figure out at all. Most companies, when you ask them what they sell, they will give you Sarah's sentence in some form. They'll tell you who they are. They'll tell you what they make. They'll tell you why their team is special and the years of history and experience. But none of that is an offer. An offer is a transaction the prospect can see in their head. It's a specific thing they get in exchange for a specific thing they give, with a specific reason to why it matters now. Without those 3 pieces, you don't have an offer. You have a catalog, a brochure, a description. So I asked Sarah a different question. I said, Sarah, what changes for your customer the day they start using your platform? Not next year, not when they've fully adopted it, but the day they sign up. And she paused and said, I'm not sure. And honestly, that pause is a big problem. So here's what I told Sarah next. There are essentially 5 things a buyer can want from any offer. 5. That's it. Not 500, not 5,000, 5. Every product, every service, every pitch, every deal in human history has been some combination of these 5. And honestly, I doubt you can invent a 6th. If you do, leave a comment below. If your offer doesn't clearly produce at least one of them, the buyer's brain has got nothing to grab onto. And that's why they nod, smile, and move on. The 5, more money, less cost, more time, less risk, or something genuinely new that no one else in the market has or gives them. That's the entire universe of reasons a stranger will say yes to you. Now let me take you through what each one looked like in Sarah's case and what each one could look like in your world. So the first one is obvious, but most people get it wrong. I asked Sarah, does your platform make your customers more money? She said, well, yes, eventually. By streamlining their operations, they can technically take on more clients. Eventually, that word is a tell. That word is where most offers go to die. Because here's what happens in the buyer's head when you say eventually. Their brain takes your offer and pushes it from the urgent column to the someday column. Someday I'll deal with that. Someday I'll book a call. Someday I will get back to you. Someday is the silent killer of every offer. The version that works will help you grow. The version that works is, in the first 30 days, our last 3 clients added an average of about 4 new accounts. That's about 80K in new contract value. Want me to show you how? That's the same product, but it's a completely different offer. The first version asks the buyer to imagine an outcome. The second version gives them the outcome, at least the calculation of it, before they've even agreed to a meeting. And that brings up something I think a lot of people miss about offers in general. The strength of an offer isn't measured by how much value the seller delivers. It's measured by how clearly the buyer can see the value before they commit. Those are two completely different things. A great product with a vague offer loses every time to a mediocre product with a specific one. The second one is the inverse and is underrated. I asked Sarah, does your platform save your customers money? And she said something interesting. Sort of. I mean, it replaces 3 other tools that they're most likely using. I stopped her right there. I said, that's the offer. That's it. You just told me your offer and you didn't even realize it. Because here's the thing about cost-saving offers. They have a psychological advantage that revenue offers don't. They feel safe. They feel conservative. They feel like the cautious decision, even when they're not. If you're a CFO and someone walks in saying, buy this, it will grow your revenue by 20%. Let's be honest, you're going to be skeptical because revenue projections are inherently speculative, right? But if someone walks in and says, you're paying, or you're most likely paying $4,000 a month for these 3 tools, mine replaces all 3 for $1,500, you save $30,000 a year and your team uses 1 tool instead of 3, there's nothing speculative about that. The math is the math. Cost-saving offers convert better in cautious markets, in tight economies, and at companies with strong finance functions, which, by the way, is most of them. The CFO has final approval on something like 4 out of 5 B2B purchases. Even when you're selling to the marketing director, your offer eventually has to survive a CFO review. So Sarah and I rewrote her sentence. We got her down to, we replace 3 tools your operations team is already paying for less than the cost of 1 of them. Same product, different offer. And suddenly there's a number. There's a comparison. There's a reason to take a meeting because there's something tangible. The third one is also a very, very strong contender. And Sarah completely missed it because most founders do. I said to her, how long does it take your customers to do this thing before, or do this thing manually before your platform? And she said, customers generally spend like 20, 30, even up to 40 hours a week. 40 hours a week. I said, what does it take after implementing your platform? She said, they can get it done in maybe 2, 3, 4 hours. I literally just stared at her. Because again, that's the offer. That has been the offer the whole time. She's been pitching design and the ease of use and a team that understands the space, when she could have been saying, we take a 40-hour week problem and turn it into a 2 to 4 hour week problem. That's 38 hours. That's almost a full work week, every week given back to the buyer, and the buyer can do the math instantly. There's no projection, there's no eventually, there's just a number and a clear mental picture of getting their evenings back. Time is the most visceral of the 5, right? People can rationalize away an extra 10% in revenue. They can rationalize away a small cost saving. They cannot rationalize away getting their life and time back. And here's the deeper thing I noticed. Time saved is the only outcome that converts directly into both of the other 2. Time you save can be redeployed into revenue work, or it can be eliminated as headcount cost. So when you sell time well, you're actually selling all 3 of the first pillars stacked into 1. But almost no one pitches it that way. They pitch the features that produce the time saving, not the save time itself. And the moment you make that switch from feature to hours saved per week, the offer changes shape entirely. This is where I had to slow down with Sarah, because the 4th one is the one most people don't understand at all. Because they don't understand it, it doesn't get used. I said, Sarah, when one of your prospects says no, what do you think they're saying no to? She said, well, they don't think it's worth it, or there's maybe too much friction to move, etc. I said, possibly, but I said, most likely, I bet you they do think it's worth it. They're saying no because they're not sure they'll get blamed if it goes wrong. In B2B in particular, but honestly in any meaningful purchase, the buyer isn't asking, is this good? They're asking, will I look stupid in 3 months for choosing this? There's a famous phrase in technology sales. Nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. It's been around for 50 years. And it's true. People have made objectively bad purchasing decisions for half a century, choosing the safe name vendor over the better solution because the personal cost of a failed purchase is bigger than the personal upside of a successful one. There's research from Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, one of the most influential papers in behavioral economics, that prove this mathematically. Losses feel about twice as painful as equivalent gains feel pleasurable. 2 to 1. So when a buyer is choosing between you and the safe option, you're not actually competing on equal ground. They feel a no from you twice as much as they feel a yes. The way you compete with that is risk reversal. You take the risk off their shoulders and put it on your own. Things like performance-based pricing, money-back guarantees, free pilots, pay only when results show up. Anything that says if this doesn't work for you, you don't lose. And here's the counterintuitive thing about strong guarantees. They don't increase refund rates. They actually attract better fit buyers and deter tie kickers, so refund rates often go down. The buyers who would have refunded never bought in the first place, and the buyers who do buy commit harder because they had an out and chose not to take it. So Sarah and I added a line to offer. We said, if you don't see at least 30 hours a week back in your team's schedule in 60 days, we refund your first quarter and uninstall. That sentence, again, didn't change her product. It changed who she was in the buyer's mind. Suddenly, she wasn't the small vendor asking them to take a chance. She was the confident operator betting on her own work. Different category, different conversation. The last one is the one most companies lie to themselves about, and I want to spend a minute on it because I see this constantly. Sarah told me her platform was revolutionary. I asked her why. She said, well, our UI is really intuitive, our custom support is amazing, and we have over 20 years of combined industry experience on the team. I told her, none of that is novelty. A nicer interface is a novelty. Better support is a novelty. Industry experience isn't novelty. Those are all intensifiers. They make a known thing slightly better. Novelty is when you do something categorically different. A different mechanism, a different model, a different approach that the buyer genuinely cannot get from the other 10 vendors in their inbox. Most companies fail this test, and most companies are convinced they pass it. The buyer can tell, by the way. Buyers have very good radar for fake novelty. When you say, we're revolutionary, and your actual differentiator is we care more, the buyer registers it as marketing language and discounts everything else you say. But here's the thing about real novelty that took me a long time to understand. Even when you have it, buyers resist it. People love the idea of innovation, but they actually pull back from high novelty solutions because novelty feels uncertain, and uncertainty feels like risk, which we just talked about. So if you have genuine novelty, your job isn't to amplify it. Your job is to anchor it to a familiar outcome, new mechanism, old job to be done. We use a completely different approach to solve the same problem we've been trying to solve for 2 years. That sentence converts. We're revolutionizing the industry, simply doesn't. For Sarah, we couldn't honestly claim novelty, so we didn't try. We dropped the word from our pitch entirely, and the offer got stronger because of it, because now nothing in a pitch was overclaiming. Everything could be defended, everything could be proven. That's worth more than a novelty story you can't back up. So we rewrote her sentence. The version she came in with was, we help mid-market companies streamline their workflows with a beautifully designed, easy-to-use platform built by a team that really understands the space. The version she left with was, we take a 40-hour-a-week ops problem and turn it into a 2-hour-a-week problem by replacing the 3 tools your team is already paying for. If you don't see at least 30 hours a week back in 60 days, we refund and uninstall. Same product, same team, same 9 months of work behind it. 3 weeks later, she texted me, reply rates on her outreach had quadrupled, her sales conversations were shorter, sharper, and converting almost double the rate. Nothing about her business had changed, only the offer. I've been thinking about this conversation for some time now because it crystallized something I'd been circling around for a long time. Most people who can't sell think they have a sales problem. The truth is they almost never do. They actually have an offer problem. A sales problem looks something like this. I have a strong offer, and I can't get it in front of the right people. That's a real problem, but it's a channel problem, not an offer problem. It gets solved with better targeting, better outreach, better timing. An offer problem looks like this. I'm getting in front of the right people and they're nodding, but they're not buying. That's almost always one of the 5 things I just walked you through. The offer is too vague, or it's too slow, or it doesn't reduce risk, or it's pretending to be novel when it isn't. And here's the part that I think is the most important thing I've ever learned about selling. You don't need all 5. You need one. Hit one of them. Really, truly, undeniably hit one, and you have an offer the world will respond to. Hit 2, and you'll almost outperform almost everyone in your category. Hit 3, and price stops being a serious objection. But almost no one hits even 1. Most offers, like Sarah's original one, are floating somewhere in the middle, pleasant and forgettable, hitting 0. The question isn't whether your product is good. Sarah's was good. The question is whether your offer is built around something the buyer can actually see, calculate, and defend to themselves and to the people around them. If it isn't, no amount of sales training, no amount of better copy, no amount of more outreach will fix it. You have to fix the offer first. Everything else is downstream of that. I run Astra's Partners, a cold outreach business development firm. So people sometimes ask me, does any of this matter for cold email specifically? Yes, possibly more than for any other channel, because cold outbound is the most brutal sales environment that exists. The prospect doesn't know you. They have 8 seconds. There's no warmth, no rapport, no relationship to lean on. Your offer has to do the entire job alone in the time it takes to skim a paragraph, which means cold outbound is actually the cleanest test there is for whether your offer is real. If your offer can survive a cold email, it can survive anything. If it can't survive a cold email, it probably can't survive the other channels either. You're just getting away with it because warmer channels forgive a weaker offer. So if your cold outbound isn't working, before you blame the channel, audit the offer first. Run it through the 5. If it doesn't pass, build or adapt a better one. If you want help thinking through that, the offer, the targeting, the system, the link to book a call is in the description below. Just bear in mind, we only take on 1 new partner a month. Subscribe if this was useful. There'll be more thinking like this on the channel going forward. I'll see you in the next video.